Silvia Carrrasco Pons is the president of the feminist organisation Feminists of Catalonia, who have realised very recently created a report on the transition services in the region, showing the global trend of the tremendous increase of transition of young girls. And she's going to keep us up to date with that and talk about the book that's just been published. So welcome back, Silvia, and it's lovely to see you, and over to you.
This is, in fact, a second part that is logically coming after my colleague Anna's brief talk, because it shows the impact of, within the same framework, gender identity ideology and girls from schools to hormones. Now, we've seen what happens in schools. Now we're going to see what happens when they are referred to health services specialized in what they call gender identity services, etc. Which is, in fact, another example of something you've lived and seen through your own countries, in many countries, especially in the UK recently, luckily. So it's another example of how the global agenda of female erasure that started the talk today works at local level. So again, another issue. And we're proposing to talk about girls and to ask the society and the politicians and also feminist organization to work for girls and to ask the question about girls, which is forbidden by transgenderism. They don't want us to ask the question. So as many other colleagues from whom we've learned a lot say, trans childhood does not exist, but it is being manufactured internationally on behalf of a profound and well-financed authoritarian political movement to allow for the expansion of neoliberal capitalism, for which women and children are the first targets as commodities. No matter how often we repeat it, it's truth. It must be said all the time, everywhere, in every country and occasion. And recently we had the opportunity to say it in the Congreso de los Diputados in Spain, and we'll talk about it at any occasion that's been given to us. And girls within all this are the first and foremost victims of this manufacturing. And of course, I need to start by saying that I'm very, very grateful for the invitation to present here at the weekly webinar, Feminist Question Time of Women's Declaration International. Special thanks go for Amparo Domingo, my colleague and friend, Joe Brew, of course, Linda Kay and Anna, best ever companions in this session today, and all the other comrades here. So this is I'm going to present the results of a unique research to date, but wait, because there will come others soon, on the impact of a trans law, a regional trans law. The regional trans law in Catalonia passed in October 2014, which resulted in the corresponding educational and health protocols to develop its articles. Like all legislation based on transgender ideology or gender identity ideology, this law advocates the so-called affirmative model of treatment of gender dysphoria, which is based on the self-diagnosis of the person, no matter how old she is, in the belief that she can be born in the wrong body, and the consequent treatment to adapt her body to what in the person's terms is called the gender identity feeling. You can see this is the post where you can find the documents in Catalan and Spanish of the report. From adult men to adolescent girls, changes, trends, and questions about referrals to survey transit, which can be translated the equivalent of the gender identity or the gender development service that was located at Tabitha Portman or any equivalent in other countries, okay? So we decided to carry out this research because there were no accessible and open data about the number of people in the process of medical transitions, but all our indicators and feelings, in fact, if we're talking about feelings, were telling us that there was an increase was taking place, especially among adolescent girls, especially carrying out research in schools, as we had been doing for the previous 3 years, and the result of which is the book that Anna recently summarized for you. This research has been carried out by an interdisciplinary independent team of researchers from the organization Feministas de Catalunya, not in a research group at the university, although I'm a professor at the university, and nor, of course, by the authorities who should be the ones to be doing this kind of research to check the impact of the policies and the treatments they apply. No, it's been done by us. Some of the researchers need to remain anonymous for security reasons to avoid problems at work or in their careers. And this is also very important to mention. It has been based on data provided by the Department of Health, which was very difficult to acquire, of the regional government, the Generalitat de Catalunya, on the cases treated by the Servei Trànsit, as I said, the equivalent of the Gender Identity Development Service in the UK, between 2012, the year in which it began to operate, and 2021, the last year for which there are data. Although now they will have collected data for 2022, which of course we're going to ask for. Although the data is not complete and presents some incoherences and have not been provided with the level of disaggregation requested, we have reconstructed the evolution of the number of cases and trends by age, sex, and type of intervention or treatment, psychological consultation, hormone prescription, or cross-sex hormone prescription, or surgery where possible. The report is available in Catalan and Spanish, and as I said, on our website. Hopefully we're going to translate. In fact, we have already translated part of it, just a briefing, and a one-pager in English are going to publish and upload it on our website soon. And it has been sent, the full report and the one-pager and the summary, to all the members of the Regional Parliament of Catalonia and the low and high chambers in the country in recent weeks, because they are now discussing whether they definitely pass the bill on the state trans law or not. We have currently 15 trans laws, regional trans laws in the country, and that do not allow for self-ID in census. They do allow for it in many other aspects of life. So we know what was happening in the countries around us in September 2018. The then UK Equality Minister, I believe, Peggy Mordaunt, alarmed by the 4,400% increase in girls seeking transitional treatment in less than a decade, stuck with this figure, commissioned an independent inquiry, or at least this is the narrative, that had resulted in the CAS report made public in spring 2022, from whose conclusions of the Gender Identity Unit of the Travis Portman Clinic that served the minor population is closed and the model of care is being transformed, deeply revised. So among other things that are well known for all of you, they observed that there is no reliable record of evaluation of the results obtained with the treatment applied, which lack medical consensus and whose protocols have been renounced by its own staff. And without a priority psychological approach based on the key questions that I was saying that must be asked. First, what happens to these girls and why? And second, why is there an overrepresentation of children and youth with psychosocial vulnerabilities among those requesting for gender transitions? In addition, in December 2020, the young Kira Bell won the trial for medical negligence against the Tavistock Portman Clinic for having been induced to cross-hormone and irreversible surgeries as underage, as is happening right now in Spain. And we hope there is our own Kira Bell soon. And now there are more than 1,000 families in the UK, I believe, who have filed complaints against the Tavistock Portman Clinic and its methods. In Sweden, in 2021, the Karolinska Hospital, the reference hospital for treating gender dysphoria, decreed the end of treatments for children and underage youngsters with puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones after a longitudinal study with data showing that their mental health does not improve with treatment, and instead they do cause serious injuries. Since then, they have opted for a psychological and ethical approach to the anguish of children and youth who reject their bodies, and this is the literal formulation they use. In Finland, since 2020, based on studies with similar results of care services for children and youth with gender dysphoria, they decide to apply even more drastic measures, distancing themselves from the standards set by the World Association of Transgender Health Professionals, WPATH, choosing psychotherapy over any hormonal treatment or surgery for those under 25. The title of the study, as I said, is From Adult Men to Adolescent Girls, Changes, Trends and Questions about Referrals to Transit in Catalonia. Well, what is the situation in Catalonia? The total volume of cases treated is over 5,500 people, with an exponential increase of more than 7,000%. I have to say that the population in Catalonia is 7.5 million people. New annual cases have quadrupled between 2016 and the year 2021 alone. And the year 2021 alone already accounts for 25% of the cases. You can see the rise of the 10 years analyzed, revealing the impact of COVID-19 related confinement and increased exposure to social networks, especially among children and youth. The average age has fallen 12 years from 2012 to 2021, from 34 to 20 years to 22 years on average. The transit service, the gender identity unit, serves more and more women and more minors, with clearly differentiated age pattern between women and men that reveals very different situations. You can see it here. We call it the fish graph. Among children from 0 to 9, men, boys predominate. In the age group between 10 and 14 and 15 to 25, girls predominate. And in the age group over 30 years, men again predominate, where they are more than 70% of the cases. There is therefore an accelerated change in the demographic pattern of the population served, from men to women, from adults to minors. The majority of cases of underage children are girls. The majority of cases of adults are men. The increase is alarming among pre-adolescent and adolescent girls. 70% of cases in the 10 to 14 and 15 to 18 age groups are women. Although the increase is also alarming in the case of boys, only between 2015 and 2021, there has been an increase of 5,700% of girls aged 10 to 14 years of age among the cases treated by the service, by this unit. Therefore, this increase is much higher than the figure that caused the first alarm in the UK in 2018 and started the independent report that has finally resulted into the CAS report published in 2022. We expect to have that impact. There is an equally alarming percentage of cases in which the sex of the persons treated is not recorded, reaching more than 10% in these same age groups. From the trends observed and the triangulation with data from other partial sources, which speak of non-binary girls, whatever that means, we know they are girls, it can be inferred that these cases where sex is not recorded are girls. In relation to treatment, we know that most cases receive hormonal treatment. In fact, in a 2016 report by the service itself, the unit itself, acknowledged that in 80% of cases, the prescription of hormones is provided on the first visit, regardless of age, a fact that is being corroborated by our qualitative research on cases of children and adolescents. All this makes us believe that our estimates are conservative. Reality is much worse. For example, we do not have any data on private health provisions or about pediatricians increasingly prescribing puberty blockers and hormones to young children. This is not going through the unit, but they are encouraged to do that by the law. As a consequence, many questions arise from these alarming results. For example, I'll just mention a few. Why are there an increasing number of cases where sex is not recorded? Is it the Department of Health that sets the criteria for collecting data, or is it at the discretion of each unit? Now in Catalonia, there are 6 units. There was only 1 in Barcelona city. Now there are 6 in the territory. How is it possible that the sex of the person treated in a medical act, especially related to sex, is not recorded? Does the Department of Health have data on the scope of the affirmative model in pediatrics without going through the unit? And in private healthcare, how many children and adolescents in Catalonia are receiving hormone treatments? We don't know. How many teens, how many girls are having mastectomies? We don't know. Or they will not tell us. What is the scientific evidence supporting these treatments, and not only the evidence that is being published in other countries' journals, but those that are treated by the unit in Catalonia, beyond, the so-called evidence, international evidence that is usually recalled? We don't know. How long does it take from the first visit until hormonal treatment is started in children, not in the unit, because we know that maybe it's within this 87% of being prescribed hormones, cross-sex hormones at the first visit. But we don't know at a larger extent, including, as I say, pediatricians, even in the public sector. How do referrals occur? For example, how do children treated end up going to this unit? What role do schools play? We suspect a high role, but we need to reconstruct that. What about trans activist entities that are the ones that the law, the Catalan law, says that have to be consulted when any case arises in a school? We don't know. What are the treatment trajectories? What follow-up is done after hormone treatment is prescribed, and how long is it follow-up? Are there people who once treatment has started, have wanted to abandon it? What is the protocol of action in this case? We don't know. But above all, to what does the Department of Health attribute the marked change in the demographic composition of the people served by the unit, and this exponential increase in both the global volume as well as among children, and especially among adolescent girls? We don't even have news that they are asking themselves the question. We cannot accept that more and more children reject their sex bodies, and especially that more and more adolescent girls do not want to become women, without our society paying them the attention it owes, while their health is irreversibly destroyed and they are doomed to pharmacological dependence for life, far from solving the reasons for their discomfort. As society, we must remember increasingly hostile to girls, in which they are subjected to increasing sexual violence while their male peers increasingly deny it. It is essential that independent investigations be initiated on gender identity units in all the regions of the country, and that the affirmative model be reviewed, asking the key questions that the trans bill currently being discussed will prevent from being asked. Otherwise, we can be charged with transphobia or even fined. We begin to have equally alarming data from other autonomous communities that describe the same trends. So briefly, I think I can announce that on January 23rd, we're going to hold a webinar where you're invited, of course, to join, and we will show some of these trends nationwide. Trans laws and the affirmative model they promote in the face of the discomfort of minors with their bodies constitute a real attack on their integrity and development. We must repeal them all. They only serve to enrich a pharmaceutical industry of gender identity that has gone from profits of 8 billion euros to more than 3 trillion euros in the last 5 years at the expense of their health. Girls must be urgently protected and allowed to become women, enjoying the Women's Declaration rights. Thank you.